Yes, we are live now. Vic. Welcome everyone. Welcome to all the listeners we are continuing our positive aspect of the series called Real Connection. And today we have got a special guest, which at a very young age has achieved so many, I don't know where to start. So I'm just going to say one thing, that achieving doesn't come so easily. It needs determination, it needs hard work. But and to show that, today we have got one of the youngest entrepreneurs of New Zealand here. And I think she has got multifaceted, multi-talent, multi-skilled. We will uncover all of that. But today we are going to talk about her real journey, how she managed, how she achieved, and what are the positives that has come out of this. So with all listeners, it will be a real treat for us to see that anything can be achieved, anything can be done if you have the way and the determination. So without I'm delaying further, this is a special guest today, and I'm going to ask my co-host, Beck, who is going to take over this from here now and introduce her to start our Real Connections episode, which is, I hope, will be an eye-opener for many listeners. Over to you, Beck.
Thanks, Shailesh. I'm very excited to be here today and to introduce to you all our guest speaker, Sharneece Joyce. Sharneece is a 27-year-old multi-entrepreneur and founder of 9 businesses, 6 limited and 3 social enterprises. Her experiences in business began when she was just 15. So I'm so excited to go on this journey today with Shah and have a little insight into how she's been able to do that and what actually drives her passion and her, involvement in the community and what she actually, what's her purpose really. I'm so excited to unravel that all for us today. So welcome, Shah, how are you?
Oh, kia ora mai anō tātou, me mihi ka tika kia kōrua ko Shailesh, ko Beck, ko Sharneece Joyce tōku ingoa, te uri o no Ngāpuhi me Ngāti Whātua, I te taha o tōku karani māma no hoki anga ia te whānau Rolo, te whānau Sarich, Toia, I te taha o tōku pāpā, o karani pāpā no Aoturoa no hokianga no horeke, ia ko whānau Joyce, ko whānau Shelford, ko whānau Ngāpera. Nō reira, whiri noa tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone. I'm Shah, Sharneece is my birth given name. My whānau hail from New Zealand, Aoturoa, up in the beautiful Hokianga, Opanoni, and then also from the beautiful inland Rahiri, Hokianga, Whakapau Karakia side, but also around Aoturoa and more so with our papakainga in Horeke. So it's beautiful to be here on this afternoon with everyone to talk about me. We were born and raised he kumara, tino reka, so kumara never talks about how sweet they are, and so it's always a little bit whakamā to talk about yourself and really boast about those things, but it's lovely to be here and I guess to take my lead from you two and where this conversation is going to go, because I kind of have no idea, but yeah, kia ora to everyone on the Pukamata page, on the Facebook, and to all those other streaming sources. Beautiful to be here. Kia ora.
Very well. So Vic, this is a person where I know her a little bit about her, and she is absolutely astounding or outstanding to see how she has flourished in her career, but more also she's a very voluntary heart of community, and I think that's who we are made today. And today we need all these people together coming and supporting each other. So I'm going to ask Jean-Pierre Bick and ask Sharneece start start her journey and how she was motivated to do all of these things at a young age, at the start of her career, when kids generally like to do a lot of different things and just entertaining others. But here you are doing lots of serious stuff at a young age. Take us through that journey.
Yeah, ngā mihi for the pātai, Shailesh. I guess, yeah, if we rewind back just before the age of 15, when I sort of jumped into business, I come from a background where my birth mother, my mother, who I was, raised with, I was also, I guess she was a solo mum from a young age, and so from the age of 5, I was actually given to my grandfather and raised by him until I was 11. So from I guess that nurturing and caring side of being raised by our grandparents, it gave me a bit of an old soul, and in a soul that I would go and make cup of teas with and sit down with the oldies, the karanis, and the tape and gas bag over here and there, and gossip, and I would sit there and I'd be the cup of tea maker, and was a permanent cup of tea maker up until even still now. And I guess that gave me the sense of interacting with those that were older than me. And 2 of my grandparents, so my grandfather I was raised with and my great-great-grandfather, were very well-known Māori men in our community. My great-grandfather was a QSM, so he received the Queen's Service Medal for, he was the orator and received the Queen's Service Medal for that. And so I would go around different marae with my grandfathers and sit and listen to their take, their I guess challenges and the things that the haukainga, the whānau, were bringing to them. Some of those issues around, te reo and we need housing and all that kind of stuff. And so, my grandfather was also a builder, the one that I was raised with, and so he also built marae for some of our hapuri and some of our communities. And so when I go home to my marae, I can say, oh, my grandfather built this wharekai, or he built his parents' house and he built the homestead that I was raised in. And so growing up and being nurtured in that space, I guess I always had a sense of whānau and knowing that we have to give back to the community and the people that nurtured us and raised us. And then so my mother thankfully found a really great partner.
Before we go any further, I just want to recognize how much of that could there could be a pressure, but also a privilege to be such a young age and to be involved and a part of those conversations and to be going with your grandfathers to these moments and to be growing from them at such a young age. I can see that there's possibly pressure, but there's possibly it's a very big privilege to be involved in that. So I just want to commend you for that.
Yeah, and I will always give praise to my grandfathers and the other mentors that I have in my life. Unfortunately, they passed away over the last few years of my adulthood that I've had so far. And so the nurturing and the foundations, the tuapapa that they've given me has, I guess, helped me bring that forward to make sure that their journey and their visions have never ended, because they were there for the people, and it showed when they had their tagis. The people came in thousands, and wow. And so part of that I guess that kōrero for me is always to think about, if I pass away, who's going to come to my tangi, and how big is it going to be? What's the legacy that I'm going to leave as my whānau left before me and showed me the pathway. How can I do that to make sure that it's not lonely on the other side.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
You took the words out of my mouth. Definitely, it's the legacy that we create and the impact that we want to leave behind for our own children and also our family as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like I said, so up until the age of 11, my mother kind of lived in Auckland in Tamaki Makaurau, and so I grew up in Dargaville with my grandfather, and going to these different hui. And then at 11, my mum moved home. My grandfather got quite sick. He ended up getting terminally ill, and so my mother moved home, which was lovely for me to be able to have her around and to also have that manaki of an even closer mother, because she was still in the picture. She would come home every weekend to see me in manaki, but it was lovely to have her around. And so I ended up going to a kura reo, a kura down in Napier, so a bit far away from home when I think Dargaville's up near Whangarei and Napier is, halfway down the North Island. And so I went down to a school down there called Aoturoa under Dame Georgina Kingy, who is still the principal there at this time. And I learnt a lot of, I guess, independent skills that sort of also helped me, because I'd been living with my whānau for so long. It was actually, I guess, about time that I learned to live with people of my own age. And so, so my school gave me that independence to be able to think for myself, to have to be around people of my age, and because it was a boarding school, also everyone from across Aoturoa was there. So, we had people from different towns, and it's really lovely for me now growing up, being able to travel around Aotearoa and know that there's always a bed and a kai and a whānau that I can see and connect with. And it's a real sisterhood that, a lot of people now that see Hātohuipa, they want to go there. During my time, I actually didn't want to go there because I didn't want to be separated from my whānau, but looking back now, it was one of the best experiences that I had, and I am thankful. Although my parents will say I probably wasn't so thankful at the time to be sent away. But I was down there and really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed my time, learning a lot of different te reo paths and kapahaka. It gave me good foundations in te ao Māori. But when I came home, when my grandfather got really, really sick by then, he was in his last stages, I ended up coming back to Whangarei Girls High School. And I guess that's kind of where my business journey kind of starts, around that 15 mark, where I ended up going to a school that wasn't kura reo and wasn't tikanga Māori. Went from a fully immersed Māori school where only Māori, even if you're 1%, only Māori can go to that school, to a school, a mainstream school that had thousands of wahine, of girls, Whangarei Girls High School. And so from there, also coming in halfway through my fourth form, so I was 2 years into high school, and sort of not knowing what these kind of modules were, because some of the modules that I was taking were te reo and kapahaka and tikanga Māori, and it's also a Catholic school, so we had religious education, to being opened up to this world of, what kind of things are you passionate about? Is it dance? Is it photography? And so, I ended up jumping into a world for my fourth form, where I think I took tourism and hospitality and photography, and I was really trying to find the things that I was passionate about, because I had missed out on some of those learnings, into my fifth form, where I actually don't think I opted into getting to the business course. I think you have timetables in high school, and those that are in high school at the moment will know that you have to take a certain amount of classes, and they particular blocks, and then after those you can pick options that sort of slot into the other areas. And some of those options might be, I think, art history and design. And so one of the only classes that I could take was young enterprise. And so it just kind of was like, you can either take young enterprise or you can just take 5 subjects. And before, when I was at Aoturoa, study was one of the most important things. It was drilled into us that we had to study and we had to do these things. So from 5 o'clock till like 10 o'clock at night, the girls at St. Joe's will go back into school and they will sit down and they will study. And it's self-directed study for your classes that you're taking, but there's a teacher in there, or we call them kaiawhina, and they sit in the room and they walk around in a little line through your desks, checking that you're not slacking off from study, that you're not writing letters home. And so they, you get detention if you're not studying. And so,
Wow.
yeah. And so for me, I thought, well, I can't take a study period. That's not cool. That's not what I've been taught to do. And so, so I took young enterprise and kind of, started my career into looking at business and becoming, I guess, an entrepreneur.
I guess it's like from what I'm hearing, you've had many options to, like with the change of your, when you first went to boarding school, and then your life got turned on its head again when you went back to mainstream school. There was plenty of times that you could have allowed the adversities get on top of you, and turn your life in a completely different direction as well. But you kept true to your passions and I guess the foundations that you were taught from a very young age by your grandparents and by boarding school, to then allow that to mold you into who you are today, which is really nice to see, because there's a lot of things, I guess, that can direct your life down a completely different path. So it's really empowering to see that.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not going to sit there and say the journey has been easy, because it hasn't been easy to get to where I am now, 27 years on in life. And even being 27, people still look down on that age and say, how can you know what business is, or how can you think that you're a role model for others, and how are you a businesswoman in industries? Some of my businesses are in industries that are really male dominated. And so to be 27 now and still be looked down on, I sort of look back and think, when I was 15 and I started business, they were really looking down on me. But also I had really good foundations of people, my young enterprise teachers, Young Enterprise Trust itself, who I still volunteer in, 11, I think it's 11 years this year that I am still a mentor and a volunteer and a judge of their program. Wow. They really supported me to say, actually, you can be a business person if you want to be. And I guess it's always that little thing, if you want to be, because it's not saying that you have to be this. It's saying, if this is the path that you choose, you can choose it, and we will support you. And my whānau have always done that as well. My mum is probably my biggest cheerleader. She will say, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to be, I'm 100% behind you, and I will support you and I'll back you. And even down to my partner, he does the same thing. He says, if you're in it and you're in it 100%, then we're in it together. And so, it's those little keywords that we use for rangatahi, and to say, if you want to be this, you can be it. That really, rangatahi and youth can really latch onto those. And I think for me, I definitely did.
Yeah. I guess with where I'd like to go now with the conversation is, for our listeners, did you have any tough adversities when you were, sort of towards the end of high school? Anything that, could have directed you on a different path? how did you approach them, and how did you keep focused in the direction that you wanted to go?
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
being a young woman is not easy, you know, and to stay focused and to stay, you know, on course, it takes hard work, you know, and there's a lot of distractions and a lot of
Yeah.
outside noise
yeah,
that we get caught up in, and, you know, like, and it's quite easy to put your goals and your passions aside and just, you know, young and do the young 20s, you know, socializing and get caught up. How did
yeah.
you manage that at the time?
I think it was definitely hard to not want to go into the path that all my friends did, and I was from a young age I was bullied, so that's why I guess my parents also sent me to boarding school, is because in my intermediate years I was actually getting really badly bullied. Like, I was getting beaten up after school as I was walking home. Kids were, I think, even the worst part was that a kid like kind of slipped my wrist a little bit um, with a compass,
Mm.
you know, like when they were bullying me. And then the teacher thought that I was, you know, I must have been so depressed that, and so she kind of called an intervention with my mum and sort of said, like, you know, I think Sharneece is doing self-harm, which I actually wasn't, but, you know, but these kids were bullying me and picking on me and actually physically hurting me, that the teacher thought that I was doing to myself. And so yeah, from a young age I was always kind of bullied. So in some ways for me I was always kind of an outsider anyway, and part of that for me was always looking at other opportunities. So my peers didn't necessarily like, and it's funny now because sometimes I see people in the street that used to bully me that are, you know, my partner is really well known in Tai Tokerau and across Aoturoa for Māori. And so a lot of them actually respect him. And so, you know, they'll say hello, and, you know, they'll come up and give me a hug and say hello as well. And sometimes I have to think to myself, you know, oh, these ones used to bully me, or, you know, used to do this kind of stuff. And it was from a young age. And I know that that kind of stuff or trauma comes from their own trauma that they've had as well, and that's something that they've had to work through. But I guess it left an emotional scar for me, and so part of that was actually that I was looking for self-confidence and opportunities elsewhere. And so I actually applied to everything that I could, like that school said was out there. So I went on the Navy challenge, like I went to the Navy base for a month. Went to the Air Force challenge. So I went to the Air Force for a month. I did like these holiday camps as a holiday leader, Christian Bible school camps, and everything imaginable, youth line workshops. And all of that was about going there to find friends that were kind of like me, I guess, and kind of just wanted a relationship but couldn't get a really good relationship at school. And so I found peers and I became mentors and youth leaders in those areas, and still actually in those industries now, you know, working with those organizations because they helped me so much. But part of that meant that I knew that when I was to go into something, that I was going to put my heart and soul into it, because I was really a passionate person about something once I found that drive. It used to be netball. So when I was really young, I was in the top netball teams for the country, and then I was athletics. So I competed in the Colgate Games, which was like a New Zealand Colgate competition. I did triathlons and came first in those, and cross countries and swimming. And so part of I guess high school was I actually was too short for netball anymore. My growth spurt happened and I wasn't tall anymore. So I had to find a new passion, and that passion, I guess, turned into business. But even in school, I started my first business. It was a social enterprise at the time. people didn't know what social enterprise really was,
Yeah,
you know,
I
11
imagine.
years ago. And they
Mm.
didn't think that a 15-year-old kid was
15-year-old would be able to do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
was going to come up with some sort of social enterprise. They thought that I was like in a class like everyone else to make money. And I was like, actually, I want to be in a class that helps my other friends continue to finish school, so that on graduation I can look to the left and to the right of me and see everyone still there. And so I started a business with one of my friends from school, and that was kind of the first business that we had through Young Enterprise. And it was a social enterprise in terms of alternative education. But I think 3 or 4 weeks into the class, like I ran into my first problem, which was going into business with friends. And like people sometimes tell you, like, don't go into business with your friends or family. And I didn't, you know, I was 15, and I guess that was my first mistake, was not going into business. Like, I think actually my friend had a really good entrepreneurial mind. We just weren't on the same path. And the vision wasn't there, and it wasn't very clear, I guess, what she wanted and what I wanted. And so 4 weeks into like my first ever business, we were so wrapped that like I'd launched this business at school. I had to like separate, and she ended up actually leaving the class, but I ended up continuing all the way through to the end. And still kind of tried to awhi her onto that pathway, because I guess for me, I sort of like latched onto, I said, like, we started this thing together, I don't want to continue. But I guess that was my first lesson. And my teacher was really supportive. She said, like, you know, Sharneece, you can actually do this. Like, you can do this. I can see you being able to do this.
To drive,
but you know, but I don't think you can do it together. I think you have to do it solo. And so so that, I mean, that was tough for me. First business, 4 weeks in.
4 weeks in.
Kind of like,
I guess it was a good representation as to how business was going to be for you. You know, like, there's going to be adversity, there's going to be lessons and challenges, and you know, you're coming up against walls, and you know, everyone's going to be, well, not everybody, but people are going to be saying no and shutting you down and trying to, you know, push you back, you know, along the way. So I think, for me, I think when we can learn these lessons earlier on in the day, you know, and keep going, it says something about your character and your drive, and how, you know, the person that you are and it shows today. You know, that was when you're 15 and you're 27 now, and, you know, look at all the businesses and the adventures and challenges you've had and still have under your belt. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's been, like I said, it's been an experience to be able to have businesses and to learn from different people. And I've been really fortunate. I guess I've also known that my parents have, like, my mum's always told me, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I always used to think, nah, it's like what you know. And then and like, it still is what you know, but it is also who you know and the connections that you can make, because without being connected to other people and really putting yourself into spaces to meet new people and build those relationships, you can't further yourself in your career of business, because business isn't soloed. And I think, the fact that I had that kind of traumatic experience losing a friend in business, like, thankfully we're still actually friends today, but we just didn't do business together. But, you know, having that traumatic experience and then kind of being put down a path where, as a solo, like as a sole trader, you know that you can't do things alone, so you have to build those relationships. Whereas people that have businesses that are collaborative, they kind of feed off each other and rely a lot more on each other to try to, and so sometimes it's like a relationship where someone is better behind the screen doing all the book work, and the other person is a networker. But as a solo, you kind of have to take all those roles and be that networker and be that relationship builder and do the mahi as well. And so it was a good experience to say, you've had independent experiences being, thrown in the deep end, and then we'll also give it to you as a, that was education, and now we'll give it to you as a life lesson in business. And so it's been, it's been really interesting. It's been a really interesting ride.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, can we go into, sorry, Shailesh.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I just wanted to unravel the types of businesses that you now are involved in and that you have now.
Yeah, it was actually funny. When I read through that intro, when I sent it through, I was actually like, oh, should I say? So just recently, I've actually launched 2 more businesses. So sitting at about 11 now. But yeah, so I've got 9 limited companies. And they kind of range through a whole bunch of different things. Some of them are in contracting. So when I started at school doing my kind of business, it was education and, alternative education pathways for students. I ended up taking that name and actually contracting into other businesses as kind of like, well, they call it a virtual assistant now, a VA, but I didn't know what a VA was back then. I just was like, I'm just contracting into businesses as like a youth speaker and, giving youth perspectives on, what kind of issues they had. And so, so one of my businesses is still the same name as a school business that I started when I was 15, but is actually morphed into like a virtual assistance contracting business. Then I have, like kind of like this, I guess, my public profile that's kind of influencer based, community and volunteer based. It kind of shares all the different content and co-papa that I'm a part of. I've got an earth moving company. So my ex-partner and myself were working for a big earth moving firm doing a lot of, I guess, roading projects. And so I ended up being like one of the managers of this roading company. And when we left that roading company, he was a diesel mechanic and I was, a manager that knew how to work this business. And so we ended up going in to create our own earth moving and roading company, trading and doing a lot of, NZTA roading and infrastructure projects, as well as earth moving and cartage for housing and developments. While I was in school, I actually also started a photography company because I took photography as a subject, like I mentioned before. And so I became like a freelance photographer at a young age because I had a passion for just taking photos. My parents were really fortunate to buy me a camera and I just loved doing that. And then more recently, my mum's actually a marriage celebrant and we do like community packages together where we, whānau that have really low budgets, we go in there and, we provide them with a photographer and get them married for free. And so, that's another kind of business. Drug and alcohol testing. So I also became qualified as a drug and alcohol tester for my earth moving company. Essentially, I just kind of like looked at the company that I had and where the most money I was spending was. And that was like wages. So that was like, I looked at it and I was like, I'm spending so much money on wages, my trucks and drug and alcohol testings, because the more employees you have and the more sites you go to, you actually have to get drug tested on all of those sites. And those drug tests used to cost like $120 plus GST. And that was like,
per person.
So that was per person. And they were like daily tests sometimes because like Fulton Hogan and Downer, they'd ask for those things. And so I was like, how much is the qualification? And they were like, it's $600 or something. And I was like, oh, well, sign me up because I'm paying like $1,000 plus a month on drug testing. So I was like, I can do it in-house. And then I just kind of ended up contracting to other businesses and doing the same thing. And then, I kind of like was like, what other things are missing from my other businesses? And that's kind of where things like kind of started to get really a lot more stuff happening, because
Yeah, definitely.
I am definitely someone who thinks about the overall picture, like I said, where are my costs going?
Yeah.
And so I ended up starting like a Māori development social enterprise, a community development enterprise, and a youth program, which are my social enterprises. And so those sort of stemmed from the contracts that I was doing, going to these organisations and providing youth opportunities. Actually, there's some more targeted, really specific things that we could be doing with youth or with Māori communities or Māori development or community development. And so, I moved into to my other social enterprises, Manaki Tangata, Ahi Kapia, Rangatahi Ora, and also Te Ao Marama, which is like a Māori collective of other, I guess, VAs or graphic designers. We all kind of collaborate to come together and finish projects. They might be te reo teachers, whatever the kind of kaupapa needs. We kind of bring everyone together and we just kind of link. So those were kind of my businesses before. And then, like I said, I released a business before the new year, actually on December 31st. I was like, it's nearly the new year. I'm going to do something else. So last lockdown, I was like getting really into resin. It's like a really small business. It's nothing huge. But yeah, I got really into resin, and I started creating like handmade resin taonga. But because we go around to different marae and different areas, I would collect things from these, different spaces. So it might be some sand from the beach that we go to down in, wherever, Whakatane, Tauranga, might collect some sand or some shells. And I would actually put those all together into like little resin pieces. And they kind of became taonga taiao, which was like treasures or environmental treasures. And so, over Christmas, I kind of sold quite a few of those to everyone, but was able to also share whakapapa of like the places that I had been going to and how they connected to those people. And it was cool because people bought those things and they knew where it came from. They knew it was actually handcrafted too, because I was in the shed with like a mask on and stuff, crafting my own taonga. But the vision for that too is that profits from that will go into our youth programs, and at the end of the youth program, the rangatahi will be able to make their own taonga that they can keep. And so so some of that, it kind of stemmed from, I guess, a passion that I had. I was like, this is really cool. I'm just collecting all this stuff though, and I need to like do something with it. So self-taught myself how to make resin and how to do things. It was a learning curve as well. And then into selling them as taonga over Christmas, like people bought them as Christmas gifts, and Valentine's gifts coming up now as well. And then and now the hope is that profits will go from that into rangatahi, so that rangatahi can do our program and then create themselves their own taonga. And then 2 weeks ago, me and my partner also launched Tira Consulting, which is like a Māori consultancy. We're doing Māori tikanga workshops. We're just here at North Tech at the moment doing a tikanga and te reo workshop. So we're going to be running those programs as well. We're going to also run with Tuananga Aoturoa, and then some other, we're doing other te reo classes and community-based led projects, as well as working with organisations to help them in their competency with the Treaty of Waitangi, Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and He Whakaputinga, and just tikanga Māori in general. How do we bring that into business, and what does it look like? So it's been really exciting for us to be able to I guess grow businesses, and even now over the last couple of weeks I've been able to say that I'm still launching businesses because I still have a passion for business. And people think too, you've got so many businesses and you're not you know, how you can't be focusing on one or focusing on the other. But for me, I've always tried to find the link, and I guess that's why I say, you know, the drug testing led from the earthworks, and my passion for photography led me to look on a journey to discover who I was through photography, and that actually led to community development and, you know, youth spaces.
That leads me into the question. I think you've already answered it for us. You know, the positives from all of these journeys, and how you're giving back to the community, and I guess including the community within your businesses. I think you've already answered that for us, but you know, it's been a journey in finding yourself and allowing the community to see who you are, and involvement in your individual businesses and your personal life. And it's a nice weave of personal and business, and to be able to share that with your community, and also be a role model and a leader to all of the community, not just the young females that are coming through. It's very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, trying my hardest to be a good role model. I've got a 10-year-old brother. He's my youngest brother as well, and so yeah, just trying to be a good role model for him, to see that there is a good path. You know, our parents gave us good foundations to be able to whakawhiti kōrero, and you know, do a path that's right, that's tika.
I want to pick up where Beck left very nicely. She asked you, and that's exactly what I was about to ask. And she asked the question, like, at a young age, when you have so many distractions at the age of 15, 16, but so many distractions, and then yet you manage to do that thing that you wanted to do, not realizing where you end up, but getting those experiences, as you said, like, you know, partnership doing with family or friends is not the ideal, but you don't know what is ideal and what is not, but getting into it was more key for you. So exploring things at that point. How do you see now, as a reflection in 10, 12 years after 15 years, that you have managed to do so many businesses and opened up so many avenues, with that positive approach, with that sacrifice of your youth, or you call it, I don't call it sacrifice of youth, because I would say that you still did it at your youth, something that you resonated. So not necessarily just because others are doing something else, you should also do that. It's not about that. But when coming back to that reflection now, what do you see the message that you would like to give to the people who are listening, whether at whatever age you kept going with your passion that you wanted to do, not realizing what is good and what is bad for you, but exploring, I guess, and creating so many businesses, opportunities for yourself and for your surroundings. So, and then keeping up with the community, because you have been brought up and grew up in an environment, as you mentioned. How do you see now that a message positively to the people who are listening, that what do they really want to do if they are distracted, if it's uncertain world that we are living in, so many things are not really going to the way they think. What would be your good message? Because we see to you that we are excited that you keep going. We don't know how to keep up the pressure. Hi, Beck. So I really want to answer that so that people can resonate something about it, that how to keep going, how to motivate yourself.
I think it's going to be like a never-ending journey to discover self, and to also push through boundaries, because I mean, my life, like I said, has not been the best I've had. I have had ups and downs. My real father has been an absent father, so he grew up around gangs and was in and out of prison, and so you know, I didn't have him as a role model, but I also knew that I didn't want to be like him, and so that was part of my drive as well. But I guess the thing that, like, the things that I would say is that you can have it all. Like, I know people say you can't have it all, but actually, if you want to, and you're willing to push through and to continue to back yourself, that you can have it all. And it all doesn't mean that it might necessarily look and come out the way that you're envisioning. Like you might want to be a millionaire and like you're never going to get there, but you can have it all in terms of, you can have that family balance, you can have that friend balance, you can go out. I did sacrifice a bit when I was in school. So like, I mean, I had a boyfriend that I at the time thought was like the bee's knees, and you know, really, really thought he was so cool. And he didn't want to be with me because he wanted to go out partying. And, you know, I was like, there's more to life than just, you know, going out drinking. And also my stepfather was a police officer, and my mum at the time was working in the courts, and so they really didn't like me going out to parties in case, you know, I got picked on or beaten up. And so I lost a lot of relationship and friendships, which is another thing. Like my mum always said to me, oh, it's okay to only have enough friends that you can count on your fingers, because especially with social media now, we feel like the more followers we have, the more our life looks on social media. You know, all has to be so perfect, and you know, I have to take this really cool selfie of me taking, you know, drinking my Starbucks coffee and being at a really flash place. And yes, you know, I will admit that sometimes I take those photos too, but actually that is my real life, that I'm because I used to really buy into that and only post what was real on, you know, what was real, but it really wasn't real on Facebook and Instagram. And then I took a challenge. I said to myself a few years ago, I want you to post 365 days, which is super hard, but the real stuff. So we ended up going into lockdown. You know, I couldn't post like Starbucks coffees because we were in lockdown. So I was legit posting real stuff because that was my life, you know, at home, stuck in lockdown, there was nothing going on. And so people kind of really resonated with that. And it was, you know, it's okay for me, and I feel it's okay not to have 1,000 followers. Like I think I've got 1,000 followers on Instagram, which is like, you know, pretty, everyone's like, whoa, so many followers. But you know, it's all right to not have that amount of followers, but still be posting just for yourself. And I've taken on this motto that I've sort of created for myself a few years ago when I went on this journey of self-discovery, which was own your authenticity and live your truth. And so, you know, owning your authentic self, exactly who you are, exactly who you want to be, and then living that as the truth, the true reflection of your life, and really putting that out. So yeah, everything I portray now, or like put out on Facebook and Instagram, has been real. And yeah, I've lost followers, but who cares? The whānau that are around me now are far more invested in my life than others have ever been, like ghost followers and that kind of stuff. So yeah, for any rangasahi or any person, just any person in general, you don't have to be young or old. You can have it all if you want to. And so long as you put that trust and belief in yourself, because you have to believe in yourself first before anyone else will believe in you. So long as you believe in yourself, then other people will buy into it, and they will respect you for it. Even if it is the, like, you know, even if people are like, oh, you shouldn't have said that, if you think that that's, you know, that's being honest and that's true and that's the ka for you, then stick to what you know. And I'm, you know, I'm bad for that too. Sometimes I'll be perfectly blunt about stuff and say, oh, you know, and then I think about it later and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. But yeah, so long as that's believing yourself and just sort of following that path that you want to be on. And yeah, just be open to make mistakes. I know that my own teachers kept telling me, oh, it's okay. I used to cry like for assessments if I like got anything below an A or an excellence. Like my thing at school was, because NCA was really bad for that too. They make us grade ourselves against other people. And so when you're in school, an excellence is the best thing you can get. Then you get a merit, then you get an achieved. And so sometimes you look at the other people's work and they get an excellence, and you're sitting in a mirror and you end up saying to yourself, oh, theirs is better than mine, or they're better than me. But actually, you've just got a different point of view. And so really seeing that and not judging yourself against other people can help you, because everyone is individual so long as they remain individual. At the moment you start copying someone else, you lose your authenticity, you lose who you are, and you become just a clone of that other person. And so, just really, really knowing that it's okay to make mistakes. You don't have to be perfect all the time. You don't have to portray that perfect life. But if you make a mistake, how do you fix that? How do you come back, and how do you bounce back? And, so long as you're resilient, oh yeah, I fell over. Like I always think about netball. Oh, I fell over, grazed my knee. I could either fake an injury and walk off, or I can, dust off the dirt, the puddle that I've got, and continue on that path of, and try and win the game. And that's kind of how I see life, as just continuing to strive and making sure that, if you make a mistake, how are you going to come back? How are you going to fix it? Building that self-confidence, that self-courage, and just believing in yourself so that you can, I guess, succeed in life if you want to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what we can see here now, that as a positive outcomes for our listeners, is make mistakes, but don't worry, you can still fix it. And you are the one only if you can fix it, because you believe in yourself. So trust yourself, believe yourself. These are all the positives. And keep doing multiple things so that you are gaining knowledge, skills, everything at the same time, but also then giving back to the community. You are eligible and you are skillable to give back to the communities on various levels. And that's, I guess, is what I can wrap up from here, is what you have achieved so far, running your own youth and development programs, leadership programs, freelancing yourself as photography, making a difference to the Maori development and community developments and whatnot, advisory, cultural, you name it, and you have got in under your feather. So it's really too long a list to list it. As a young person, and I think whoever is listening, even not just for young people, but also people at all ages, they can listen to you and they can say that, well, if she can do it, why can't I do it? And it's easy to do it, and there is no age limit. You can start anything, anytime. So this is a beautiful conversation I've had with you, Sharneece, and Beck. I'm sure Beck will agree with me more. I'll leave it to her, but I think you have made this session a very, very driven, motivating session for many people who are living in this uncertain world, that not to get disturbed by opening 10 or 20 businesses. If Sharneece can do 9 businesses in 12 in communities and still do the community work, time is the limit, people say, but I think we're looking at Sharneece, we need more time to do all of these things. But you can achieve. That's the positive outcome. You don't need more time. You can still achieve everything that you need.
We keep getting told to, you can rest when you're dead, but you can, but while you can live live in the moment. So just continue to always keep learning and always keep trying. Yes.
No, that's
Definitely.
Great. Brilliant. Thank you so much.
There's so much that I've gained from our conversation today, Shah. Thank you so much. We just can't get to it all within the hour. Your life has been a journey of growth and expression, and it's really inspiring to be able to explore that and unpack a little bit of it with you today. So I really appreciate your time and just sharing with us your journey and how you've come about to be where you are today. And I'm sure our listeners can appreciate, look, if I've taken some gold nuggets, I'm sure that, everyone else has some as well. So I really am so grateful for your time today. Thank you so much.
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou te whānau, kia korua a Shailesh a Beck. Ngā mihi whānau, kia ora.
Once again, listeners, this is real human, real connections with real people, and what a story, what a journey. And we will love to see and keep up and keep updated with Shani's their journey. But by all means, in all listeners, please feel free to contact us and to ask us any questions. And if you need any help from this beautiful person, definitely get in touch with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Have a lovely